Tonight, we're going to talk about why we need to maintain lean muscle mass and particularly strength and muscle mass as we age. And not only for those of us who are going through a weight loss journey, but everyone. It doesn't matter if you have been fit your whole life or if you're kind of going through that weight loss journey now. Every single person needs to focus on maintaining their muscle mass as they age to maintain a better quality of life. So with that being said, again, the topic tonight is weight training has no age limit, and we'll get right into it here. All right, so kind of going over my background just so you kind of get a better picture of who I am. Again, thanks, Chris, for the nice introduction there. Again, my name is Barrett Panning. I'm a certified exercise physiologist and also a certified strength and conditioning specialist here at Ridgeview through the American College of Sports Medicine and through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. I'm an alum of Gustavus Adolphus College, graduated in 2015, which I know to most of us doesn't seem that long ago, but to me, I'm having an existential crisis of how long ago that seems to me, and especially on my birthday tonight. So please forgive me about that. And then kind of going through my background here at Ridgeview, I've been working with the medical fitness and the pulmonary rehab population since 2017, both working with the lung patients and lung population, as well as seeing patients with, you can kind of see the list on the bottom bullet point there, but using exercise for patients with neurocognitive disease, weight loss, cardiovascular and pulmonary disease, injury rehab, and then of course sports performance, and then even some more on top of that. But I didn't want to bore you with all of that, just kind of giving you a broad background of who I am and why you're listening to me talk tonight. So we'll jump right into it. So the topic tonight, muscle mass and aging. All right, so muscle mass and strength reach their peak between our second and third decade of life. And after age 40, our muscle mass tends to steadily decrease at a rate of about 3 to 5% per decade. All right. This loss of muscle tissue with an associated loss of strength and mass is referred to as sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is a big, scary word. It's Greek and I think Latin background. Literally means loss or poverty of flesh. And so it's kind of even some of our doctors that I work with don't really get too much of a background with this word in medical school, but it is truly kind of my personal boogeyman that I'm trying to fight with my career here. As we age, again, we do lose that muscle mass, and it's really important to maintain that for not only for a good quality of life, but also then for maintaining our independence as we age. So after the age of 50, our muscle loss drastically accelerates. And so from our 20s to our 80s, we can lose up to 50% of our muscle mass if we do not train. All right, now we're going to go through different ways that we can maintain that. But again, just keeping that in mind of kind of that steep drop off if we just don't take care of that part of our body. So muscle weakness is associated with difficulty with functional activities such as difficulty rising from a chair and difficulty getting out of bed. Obviously, two very important things in our lives day to day. Decreases in muscle mass tend to put you at risk for frailty. And so as we age, we'll talk about frailty, but frailty is the loss of resistance to stressors. And that's kind of the Webster's dictionary definition of it. But examples of this in real time would be like increased healing time after injury, after surgery, increased risk of falling, increased risk of injury from falling, increased fatigue throughout our lives, and then decreased walk tolerance. All things that are extremely important to try and maintain as long as we can as we age. And then the bottom bullet point there would be that increased vulnerability. And kind of a morbid way to put it is that we want to increase our muscle mass as much as we can, or our strength, because it makes us harder to kill. And I know it sounds very crass to put it that way, but if we think about it, like, I don't know, if we fall down, we decrease our chance of a serious injury from falling, or say, heaven forbid, we get in a car accident. We tend to have a better outcome with our injuries if we have higher strength, higher muscle mass. So a way to think about it that's kind of crass, but kind of gets the point across a little bit. All right, so this infographic, I guess, is just a little bit more about falls and important facts about falls. So each year, at the top there, millions of older people, those 65 and older, have a fall. In fact, more than 1 out of 4 of those people fall each year, but less than half tell their doctor. Falling once doubles your chance of falling again. And so those are kind of scary statistics because think about all the people that tend to fall and just like, oh, that wasn't anything to worry about. I'm not going to tell my doctor about that, or they're embarrassed about it and don't want to talk to their doctor about it, and then it just kind of exacerbates. They're just going to compartmentalize that and not worry about it, and then it just kind of is a positive feedback loop. Falls are serious and costly. You can read the bullet points there, but I'll kind of go over a few of them here. So 1 out of 5 falls causes a serious injury, such as broken bones or head injury. Obviously, head injuries are all the rage about how scary they are now with the football players and things like that in the news. So we want to avoid those as much as we can. Over 800,000 patients a year are hospitalized because of a fall injury, most often because of a head injury or a hip fracture. Each year, at least 300,000 older people are hospitalized for hip fractures. Obviously, there's that old kind of stigma of grandma falling and breaking her hip, but it is actually a true thing. There's a lot of broken hips from people falling that are unable to catch themselves due to weakness, or because they're weak, they fall, things like that. In 2015, the total medical costs for falls totaled more than $50 billion. Medicare and Medicaid shouldered 75% of these costs. Obviously, that was 6 years ago now, so you can imagine how much more expensive it is with rising inflation. So again, this is just kind of another highlight of those bullet points there. So just think about the scary risks there, the scary statistics. Kind of hitting you over the head with it one more time to drive home the point there. So what are some factors that contribute to sarcopenia? Number one, there's a hormonal factor, right? So there's a decreased levels of testosterone, estrogen, or insulin-like growth factor. All of these we've probably heard about in some capacity. Obviously, we know that testosterone is a male-dominant hormone. Estrogen is the female-dominant hormone, but both genders have those to some extent. Both sexes have those to some extent. And then insulin-like growth factor is also one of those that everyone has, and it does contribute to muscle growth. So those are kind of the 3 big ones there. As we age, those all decrease and fall off. And if we're not training or eating correctly, those can decrease even faster. Second bullet point, oftentimes as we age, we don't take in as much protein as we should or as we used to, and our protein synthesis, or the generation of new muscle or new protein, is not as high as we age. And so combination of these factors, right, decreases our overall muscle mass and tends to lead to sarcopenia. As we age, we tend to need more protein than when we're younger, and oftentimes it's an inverse. As we age, we eat less and don't get as much protein as we should, and therefore we need more protein for protein synthesis in our body, but we don't take enough, so it's a steeper drop off. As we age, there's a change in muscle fiber type and motor units. There's fewer fast twitch muscle fibers and more slow twitch muscle fibers. The fast twitch muscle fibers you can think about if you're lifting something heavy, or if you're doing a short burst of activity. Those are often the dominant muscle fiber type. And as we age, those become fewer and fewer if we don't train those with those stimulus. You think about lifting weights or doing something that's heavier or a faster stimulus or a faster movement. We tend to do that less often as we age. And then lastly, there's just tends to be a less amount of physical activity as we age. Think about when you were, in school, elementary school to high school, there was, recess and extracurricular activities and things like that. We tended to have more activity. It was easier to be active when we were that college age, young adult. And then as we age, it just tends to seem like that's something that gets put on the back burner more frequently. And then that tends to, if we don't stress our bodies to a certain extent, then we do expose ourselves to a higher level or a higher risk of developing that sarcopenia or loss of muscle mass. All right, so then we're gonna go down to this guy here. Again, we'd all like to look kind of like that guy. I know at least the males in the audience would, right? The guy looks like he's in this latter stages of his life here. He's in the twilight years, but he looks like he could be 25. His body from his neck down. So I know that's a exaggerated feature, but just kind of wanted to at least grab your attention a bit here. So number one, regular weight training has shown to reduce blood pressure, can improve blood cholesterol levels. It can improve insulin sensitivity, which for those of you that kind of know what insulin is, another one of those hormones we talk about, tends to do with diabetes, right? When we improve our sensitivity to insulin, right, we're able to better utilize those sugars that we take in. All right. And I've seen people be able to decrease their medication for diabetes just based on increasing their exercise, but also the resistance training as a piece of that, and increasing their lean muscle mass. All right. It helps speed up gastrointestinal transit, so helps you digest your food a little bit easier and a little bit more efficiently. It can increase bone mineral density. If you expose your body to load or to a stressor, our bones actually adapt to that stressor, and we put more resources towards building up our bone density. So if you think about osteoporosis patients or people who have low bone density, it's especially common. You tend to see it more in the female population. As you age, you see that decreased bone mineral density. Strength training has a tremendous benefit towards increasing that bone mineral density and fighting osteoporosis and osteopenia. So think about that if you're in that population that could be exposed to that. It can help alleviate low back pain. A couple ways. First, it can help increase your posture, so you're kind of more standing in that upright position. It can kind of improve, so you're not always feeling so slouched over. Your muscles are stronger to hold you up. It can also alleviates low back pain in the fact that you're going to move your joints and your muscles into the different planes of motion that we just often don't do as much as we should if we're not strength training. Think about if you're going for a walk or a jog as your main form of exercise. If you are exercising, if you've started incorporating that, we tend to stay in the same plane of motion the entire time that we do that. We don't tend to go side to side or up and down. It's more of just that forward and backward movement, and we tend to get locked in place. And if we're not doing anything, if we're just sitting at a desk all day, which sometimes I'm guilty of as well, as much as the next person, sitting down all day kind of just gets locked up, and that back pain can be prevalent. But if we're doing some resistance training and we're exposing our body to the different planes of motion, we're doing different things. Oftentimes, I've seen people's low back pain really improve. I've seen that especially in my pulmonary population, who they have a very low amount of energy to do anything during the day. So exercise tends to be, before they come and see us, tends to be the last thing they want to do. But when we get them doing an exercise plan, I've seen people come in with a 6 out of 10 on their low back pain scale. And by the time they leave the 9-week class, they're down to a 3 or less, just because of the exercise that we do, the movements that we do can tend to alleviate some of that discomfort. It can ease arthritic discomfort. It can get some fluid to those joints that tend to get inflamed with arthritis. We can, by moving them, we get fluid to them. The joints work better. Think about if you've got a greasy joint in your door, all right, and you throw some WD-40 in there. When we exercise, we do kind of a similar thing with those joints, and it doesn't have to be a high impact exercise. If you got a cranky knee that flares up on you, I'm not telling you to go do 1,000 squats or go do a CrossFit workout. But if you do tend to move it around at a low impact, get in the pool or hop on a bike or something that's very low impact and get it moving, oftentimes I've seen arthritic discomfort go away just by doing some of that resistance training. All right. It can improve our cardiovascular function. Kind of talked about already reducing blood pressure and improving blood cholesterol levels, but it also improves the cardiovascular function itself by making the heart more fit. Now, we often think about cardio activity as the one that's going to challenge our heart or help our heart health the best, but studies have actually shown that resistance training can have, I'm not going to say always, but can have similar outcomes as far as cardiovascular efficiency and cardiovascular function. It can reduce body fat. Again, same kind of deal. We're burning calories as we're doing the workout, but we also want to, as we increase our lean muscle tissue, our lean tissues, it takes more energy to conserve those tissues and to go through that, what we call that protein synthesis process before. And so if we are increasing our lean tissue, we tend to reduce body fat that way, because we build muscle. It takes more energy to maintain that muscle. All right, and so we tend to take calories that are stored from our fat to maintain our muscle, and pretty soon we're reducing body fat all throughout our body. Can improve our functional abilities. We talked about the sitting down and getting out of bed and all that kind of stuff, so kind of common sense there, but the stronger you get by moving around, by moving weights around in different planes of motion, the better off you're going to be when somebody asks you to bring their water softener salt down to the basement. It's all of a sudden going to be a lot easier if you've been lifting 50-pound dumbbells at the gym. It's going to be kind of the same deal. It's going to be a lot easier. And the bottom one there, kind of common sense, but it can improve our mood and our outlook. It can release some great endorphins in our body. It's kind of my favorite way to have a stress relief session is go lift some weights. I've never been a big runner or cardio person. I'm getting better at it, so don't send the pitchforks after me. But it's kind of my favorite way to improve my mood if I'm having a tough day, and kind of always it releases some good feel-good hormones in my body. Moving along, we'll look at this graph here. If you just take a peek, I know sometimes when we look at a graph, we just kind of tone it out. This is a pretty simple one. We can look at two people. This is adapted from the World Health Organization graph in 2000, so it's a little bit dated now, but it is still relevant, I think, to our conversation. So if we look at two people here, random people, all right, we can kind of look at the top graph as somebody who they're born on the same day, everything's equal. All right, now we're looking at people that have trained versus people that don't train. All right, so the top line of that graph is somebody who has trained their entire life, all right, and they continue to train as they age. The bottom line is somebody who does not train or just does not do resistance training as they age. We can see that they both kind of in that early life period tend to go up. Obviously, we all went through puberty. We've all kind of gone through those. We all know what happened in middle school and high school, and we all kind of started getting bigger and stronger. But now this person at the top started doing resistance training in early adulthood and kind of started separating a little bit. The bottom person's strength hasn't gone up very much at all. And now you start to get to that adult life. We're peaking at the top. We're both kind of hitting our peak strength. Obviously, the one person's peak strength is a lot higher. They've been strength training or they've been training to be stronger. But the bottom person starts to really see that drop off as pretty steep. All right, and you can see that disability line kind of in the middle there. And that person tends to hit that disability line, or what is considered a disability, when you need help doing things, you can't be independent anymore. As you start to leave your adult life and get into your older life, think about the retirement years, now you're already crossing that disability line. And so the person who has been training, you can see kind of doesn't even get close to that disability line as they age and even get towards the end of their life. They're still not at that disability line. They can continue to be independent for a long portion of their life, which is kind of what most of the patients I see, that's always their number one goal. They don't want to end up in a nursing home or an assisted living where they need help doing things. They want to maintain that sense of independence for as long as possible. And so we're going to get into our raising expectations here. So kind of think about, we know we've probably heard a bunch of times, being that this is a weight loss seminar or weight loss group, why we need to exercise to lose weight and to be healthy and all those things. And I'm sure that you've heard before the goals that we're trying to get to. I'm sure Sandy's done a great job of talking about how often you should exercise, what your program should look like, and things like that. But I want to try to make it as simple as possible here, and I want to try to eliminate any perceived barriers that we might have. So we talk about the aerobic exercise like walking or swimming or whatever your preferred method is, versus that resistance training or strength training or weight training, however you want to think about it. But those are kind of the two big ones that we want to kind of combine into a well-rounded routine. And then in our battle against sarcopenia, we want to be healthier than what we call the mall walking crowd. And we all kind of know what that looks like. We've been in malls when we see the older couple walking and they have their walking shoes on, and that's great. They're getting out and about, they're being active, but we want to, they're not challenging their muscle tissue. We want to be healthier than them by improving our muscle tissue as we age, and we want to still be lifting weights and doing resistance training as we age, because frailty does not need to be an inevitability of aging. We don't need to just think that down the line there's going to come a point where I need help doing things. Frailty does not need to be an inevitability. It's not a certain thing if we take it upon ourselves to maintain our resistance training as we age. So a big thing, if you take away anything from this whole spiel that I'm giving tonight, are the two words consistent and progressive. All right. So consistent means we're doing it over and over again, and we're not, making excuses to take days off. We're finding time to do things. We're doing things consistently over a longer duration of time. And progressive means that we're going to be doing things progressively building up. We're not going to do the same thing over and over again till the end of time, because we're not challenging our body to change in a meaningful way. Progressive and consistent are the two kind of main components of a resistance training program that are kind of the two big ones. All right. Think about that: exercise is medicine. Those are the two things that are going to be your two main things on that prescription. So what are we shooting for? We're shooting for gains in lean muscle tissue and change in our confidence, change in blood pressure, like we talked about, change in our mental recall and resiliency, and a change in our medications that use hormones and metabolism as controls. Think about your insulin-related medication, i.e. diabetes, anxiety and sleep meds, and caffeine. All right, so think about those as we go here. So again, the most important stuff, try to break it down as simple as we can. So think about actions that you can take um, progressively for as long as you can think, right? I don't want to say till the end of time, but as long as it's feasible, all right? Our challenge for the week is strength and aerobic, or resistance training and aerobic, however you want to think about it. We want to try and do 2 days of both, 2 days of consistent and progressive strength training, and then 2 sessions of aerobic exercise, one session of which would be like an elevated heart rate day, and then one of those might be a high intensity workout day or an interval type workout day. Think about like a cycling session on the bike or something like that, where you're getting that heart rate up really high and then dropping it down again, resting, going at intervals. That's kind of how I like to do it. I've found that it works really well, because you only have to, those can be kind of a pain in the butt, but they're really, really good for your heart. And that way I only have to look forward to doing that one time a week instead of twice. And it's kind of a little bit more palatable for me. And then if you want to be really awesome, or action for awesome would be to add a day of yoga or add one session of aerobic work, whether that's a light walk, or going for a swim, or working in the garden, whatever that might be. Think about adding those actions for awesome. All right. And then a note on the bottom, don't worry, these recommendations will not make you too bulky. They'll help you maintain a high quality of life as you age. So those are kind of our two big things there, right? 2 days at least of strength training, consistent and progressive. So try not to skip days, try to get them in, make them a priority. And then 2 sessions of the aerobic work, one session of your elevated heart rate, one session of your high intensity interval training. And then this would just be kind of an expanded calendar of a week. We've got our Monday, just get your 12 minutes of your elevated heart rate, total of 20 to 25 minutes of effort. That'd be like your interval day. All right, then Tuesday would be like a strength day. Wednesday, that long walk or longer duration cardio. Thursday is just an easy day, that stretch day, or you could add that yoga if you wanted to be awesome. Friday would be another strength day, and then we have our Saturday and Sunday. Try and take on a challenge for your brain, keep yourself active, get outside and enjoy the sun a bit if it's nice out, not if it's blazing hot like it is right now. All right, so we talked about strength training and the importance of it. In order to make that kind of manifest itself to the best of its ability, all right, protein, protein, protein is really important. And I know that you've heard this over and over again, so I won't beat it too much further into your heads here, but just kind of a 10,000-foot view, looking at what we need for protein. We've got the plate, the My Plate recommendations on the side. I know everyone's got their own version of what that looks like, but try and think about general recommendations here of 20 to 25 grams of protein per meal. We recommend 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram per day of protein. All right, so then you could take that calculator down there and put in your body weight in pounds divided by 2.2 to give you your weight in kilograms. And then you go through your calculations there. You either multiply it by 1.2 grams on the low end, 1.6 grams on the high end. That kind of gives you a good range of what you should aim for in a day. If you've got a specific plan that's recommended by a dietitian, then I recommend you follow that. I just always know that I tend to prefer seeing my patients on the higher end with their protein, because it fills you up more. B, it's likely from a better quality source than refined carbohydrate or refined something else. It tends to be from a better source because it's usually a lean meat or a dairy product or things like that. So kind of those are kind of general recommendations to keep in mind. But again, we do need adequate protein in our diet throughout the day if we do start to incorporate more and more resistance training in our diet. And again, I'll harp on it again. As we age, we do need more protein than when we're younger. And oftentimes it tends to not be the case because as we age, we tend to not be as hungry and we tend to just eat whatever's convenient. And sometimes protein is not the most convenient thing in the world to eat. So do your best to try and think about that. I know most of you probably already are, so it is beating it into your head again, but just always be thinking about it. We tend to think about it as if you're ever in doubt, go for a protein source as a snack. If you have questions on what those might look like, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to help you. But I know you have good sources to reach out to there. So getting close to the end here, I promise. Fact or fiction. So we look at what some myths are in strength training and then some facts on the side. So number one, strength training is going to make you bulky, and that's just not the case. The fact is, without excessive testosterone or steroids, to put it in another term, strength training will result in lean and toned muscles. That'd be like the same concept if you're scared to start strength training because you don't want to get bulky. That'd be like you don't want to drive a car in case you turn into a NASCAR driver overnight. It's just kind of, it's not going to happen unless you're very diligent about it. And I've been lifting weights for 14 years and I still don't look like how I want to. So I don't think that it's something that is going to happen without you putting some real dedication towards it. Uh, Bottom one, or next one, to lose fat, you should only do cardio. Again, the fact strength training has been shown to increase your resting metabolic rate for 48 to 72 hours after you're done. All right, so as soon as you were to leave the gym after a strength training session, you could leave the gym and you're still increased your metabolic rate for 48 to 72 hours after that strength session. So it shows that you don't have to just do cardio to burn calories to lose fat. You're burning calories by doing strength training as well. Next bullet point, strength training is hard on your joints. The fact is that weight-bearing exercise promotes hydration of the cartilage in your joints and in your synovial fluid. Muscles protect the joints. So increase your muscle mass, you're going to give your joints more protection to the stimulus of day-to-day life. And you're going to, like we said, that WD-40 is that synovial fluid. It's going to help loosen things up and is actually not hard on your joints if you're doing it in a proper progressive overload way. And then the next bullet point, I walk every day and work in the garden, so I don't need resistance training. And then the last bullet point on the fact side, you do need progressive overload to build and maintain muscle mass. So like we said, if you're just doing the same thing every day, if you walk the same route every day and that's your exercise, that's great. You're being active. I have nothing against that, but you're not doing something that's progressively overloading your muscles to build more muscle mass. So in order to progressively overload, that means when we're in the gym, we're doing an exercise, that means I started off with 5 pounds. And then 2 weeks later, I'm doing the same amount of reps with 10 pounds by gradually increasing our reps or increasing that weight slowly. But we are progressively over time increasing our overload to build and maintain muscle mass because your body's only going to respond to the stimulus that you give it. And if you give it the same stimulus every day, it's not going to change. So think about that progressive overload in a consistent way. All right, so we have the second 50 years message, and I know some of us might be younger than others, but this is kind of the same message that we give to everybody that hears this lecture. So there's mixed messages a lot out there, so be open to the exercise as medicine message. There are real risks to doing exercise, especially if you're a novice and you aren't really sure what you're doing or you try to do things on your own. But don't be afraid to adapt to a stimulus. Ask people who are professionals. We're happy to get you on the right course. Big thing is just exercise. I know there's risks to it, but the big thing is we got to exercise. Consistent and progressive are your keys to success, and our brains and bodies are able and ready to meet this new expectation. You just have to jump off the diving board and take it.